It's Sunday night, it's 9:30 p.m, and it's time for the Gersnet Podcast. We're here live to bring you the last word on your Rangers weekend on the free and independent show made by the fans for the fans. This week we've seen Rangers beat the Heat in Paisley and hold our nerve out in Poland, as well as falling foul of UEFA's disciplinary process. We're going to be discussing all of this and plenty more on tonight's show, which happens to be Gersnet Podcast number 55. As I say, we're coming to you live, and this is your show, so please do get involved. We've activated the comments on the YouTube stream there, so if you were at the game today, please do let us know your thoughts. Even if you weren't at the game, then please do say hello as well and get involved in the show. As always, if you're not listening live, the pod is available for download from Monday morning. You can grab that on iTunes, on Acast, Stitcher, Google Music, everywhere you get your regular podcasts. If you've not done so already, please do make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. My name's Ross Bennett, and I'm going to be your Gersnet host this evening. And I'm delighted to be joined by two regulars to the show. First up is John McCallum. John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm well, Ross. I can't complain at all. I had a nice weekend. The sun shone. I did a charity walk today for Beatson. So if anyone was in Glasgow and saw lots of people in yellow walking about, I was one of them. Yesterday I did a bit of hill walking and made the most of the unseasonably warm weather. So it was great. Yep. And Rangers won, and I'm looking forward to the week ahead. What about yourself? How are you?
Very, very good. I'm warm. I'm really, really warm. It's hot down here. And also it's a bank holiday weekend in England, so I've got the day off tomorrow. So absolutely delighted. How are your feet feeling?
I'm tired. I won't lie. I'm not as fit as I once was. That came over loud and clear.
Excellent.
I've taken a couple of injections to be here tonight.
Well, we're delighted that you have. Also returning to the show this evening is Graham Gallagher. Graham, now can you promise me that there aren't going to be any naughty add-ons from you this evening, just in case a UEFA delegate is listening in?
Oh, hello. No, there won't be any naughty add-ons from me, that's for sure.
Good, I know what you're like. Were you at the game today, or were you watching on the telly?
No, I wasn't quite as active as John. I was an armchair fan today.
Fantastic. Same as me. Right, listen, obviously we joke about the UEFA delegates and the punishments and all that. That's all going to come over in good time. But first things first, this is a football podcast. We're here to talk about Rangers. We've had two games this week, which is what I want to talk about above all else. I think the best place to start is over in the Costa del Paisley with today's game against St Mirren. Now, Graham, depending on who you speak to, today's game either showed us that we still can't break down defensive sides and it's all a disaster, or it's demonstrated an excellent desire and great determination to win against a team who parked 11 men behind the ball. What did you make of that?
I thought St Mirren set it up the way they have in the first two games of the season. Very difficult to break down. They only lost by an odd goal against Hibs and they beat Aberdeen. That's more or less what I was expecting from them. At times it felt a bit like watching primary school football when any of our attackers or midfielders were in or around the box. There were like 5 or 6 people around them, all trying to get a kick at it and get it away. Unfortunately for us, Rangers were professional enough to finally get the win in a game that we would normally have drawn last season.
I think I agree with you there. So it's a game that we really would have struggled in last year, and it's similar to how we started the season against Kilmarnock, is that we've taken 3 points from somewhere that we might have taken 1 point last season. But like you say, we clearly still slightly struggled to break them down, with them putting at times all 11 men behind the ball. And there were times when, we had our back line in Helander and Goldson were 25, 30 yards away from the St Mirren goal line. So we were pushing hard, and like you say, they were crowding out our strikers, crowding out our attackers, and it was difficult to find that space. John, is it a concern perhaps that we're still struggling to break down these teams? I mean, let's be fair, if we didn't score from a set piece today, that was ending 0-0.
No, I don't think it is a concern. I mean, we did break them down. We did win. A piece of magic won that game. And that's what's required. That's what's always been required. I mean, go back to the days of Brian Laudrup. We needed a piece of magic. We needed a genius to win games against teams like St Mirren in those days. And in those days, it's not changed that much. St Mirren came out to try and not lose. That was their entire game plan. They saw what happened to Hibs, and they didn't want the same thing to happen to them. And they played that way, and it was successful for them. They got away with a 1-0. They could have perhaps sneaked a draw at the end. So no, it doesn't worry me enormously. We don't have the players we had. I mean, I name check Laudrup. We don't have a player as good as Laudrup. However, we know what we're up against. Overall, I'm fairly satisfied. A 1-0 after a European game away to St Mirren early in the season. I'm happy with 1-0. So it's not worrying me hugely, though.
Well, I guess above all else, it kind of shows progression from last season. It shows a maturing side and a side that's kind of gaining that mental toughness, whether that's been drilled into them over the summer or whether that's been recruitment. And at the end of the day, that's 9 points from available 9. I think the team in third place are in 5 points. So it's kind of clear that there's going to be two breakaway teams in this league, kind of going back to the olden days. Graham, if we look at the starting lineup of the side, it was big Philip Helander. Right, we need to clear this up, by the way, Graham. Helander or Helander? What are we coming down on?
I would say Helander.
Helander, right. I'll go with that.
It's Big Phil, is that not what we're calling him?
Big Phil, right. Big Phil had his first league appearance today. First things first, Graham, what did you make of the performance? This is a £4 million player by some accounts, so...
I think he's still finding his feet, to be honest.
Right.
When
Goldson and Katic are playing, Katic is a very, very aggressive player, and he attacks every ball that comes anywhere near that comes anywhere near the box. So Goldson sort of acts like a sweeper on him. But when he was with Helander today, Helander being a more senior pro than Nikola Katic, he stood off him quite a bit, which I don't necessarily think helped Helander. And he wasn't his usual. Conor Goldson wasn't his usual barking commands as he would with Nikola Katic, because I think he recognises a senior pro. But other than that, I don't think he was tested much. He was a little bit weak in the first 10 minutes as far as high balls were concerned and heading. But other than that, you could put that down to this is his first Scottish League Cup game. Scottish League game, and he has to come up to speed on it. He's been out for quite a wee while. He's just coming up to fitness. So, there's a few excuses you could make for him. But overall, I thought he did okay. I don't think he was a disaster.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's been very much eased into Scottish football at the shallow end against East Fife and St Mirren. And next week, if he gets the nod, it's going to be a hell of a lot tougher. John, do you think it's perhaps unfair on Niko Katic that he was the one to drop out? Like we mentioned, Katic's progression over the summer has been superb, right? And the way that he attacks every ball, he's a much more composed player than he was at times last season. And I thought he's been looking like one of our best players throughout the course of the season so far. Was it harsh for Katic to miss out in this game, considering that, in my opinion, I think we'll come on to it, there are starting to be questions asked about Goldson's defensive attributes?
I haven't heard Gerrard speak. I didn't hear Gerrard speak before the match. Did he say that Katic had been dropped? Because if he did, I think it is pretty harsh, because I think Katic just started the season really, really well. Watching him on Thursday night, I thought he was our best defender on Thursday night. I know he's something of a polarising player still for some of the support, but I think he's come on leaps and bounds. And if he was dropped for poor form, I would be very, very surprised. If he was rested because he picked up a knock, or perhaps the feeling is that he needed a rest ahead of 2 very big games coming up, that I would find much more. That would make much more sense to me. I would be surprised if Katic isn't in the team on Thursday if he's fit. I would expect him to start. I think him and Goldson remain our first choice centre half pairing. So if he has been dropped, I think that would be very harsh. In fact, if anything, I think his form has been better than Goldson's at the start of the season.
Exactly. That's the I want to jump in on that. I think his form, his performances have been stronger than Goldson's. And it's starting to slightly worry me with Conor Goldson is the way that he lets the ball bounce, and a long ball will kind of come over the top. And for me, I want my defenders to be defenders and clear the ball. If there's a long threatening ball coming over the top, you don't let the ball bounce. That's like rule number 1 of dealing with a long ball. And Goldson sometimes seems to slightly panic. And with these long balls, he's almost the opposite of Katic, who will just get up, get his head on the ball and head it 25 yards back the way. whereas Goldson will let the ball drop and sometimes play himself into trouble. And with that in mind, would you be comfortable playing Goldson in both games this week, John? Considering, this week could, whilst it's early, be a real season-defining week.
Yeah, with a huge week ahead. In May, on and off the park, with a huge week ahead. I would be comfortable. Gersnet did the Player of the Season last season, and I said Goldson was the Player of the Season, and everybody who didn't say Goldson was wrong, because Goldson was our Player of the Season, and I think everybody else knows that now. I've convinced them all since then, and I agree. I think when I said it myself, Katic I think has actually started the season better than Goldson, but no, I still think Goldson is a very, very good centre half, and I haven't seen enough of Big Phil or Edmundson either to know if they're better than Goldson, but Goldson would still be one of the first names on my team sheet. They let one against Warsaw. He kind of let one past. It was a strange one. I couldn't figure out if he misjudged it or if he just missed it. It was a kind of one kind of flashing drive across the 6-yard box, kind of heart in the mouth stuff on Thursday night, which you looked at 2 or 3 times in the replay and you thought, I don't know. As I said, I don't know if you misjudged that or if you just missed it. Either way, it didn't look too clever. But I think I'd still want Goldson there. He would still be my first choice. We'll see what the two new centre halves are like over the next coming months. But for now, Katic and Goldson would start for me. I think it's just a case of.
I think it's just a case of Perm 2 from 4 in there as far as that's concerned, John.
Yeah.
I don't think Nikola Katic was dropped today. I think he was rested. I think the only person who had any injury concerns was Shea Ojo. Something he might have picked up on Thursday night.
I thought Flanagan maybe took a knock on Thursday night.
Yeah, that's possible.
I wondered if that's why he was out.
So it sounds like what we're saying then is that on Thursday we shape up with Katic and Goldson at the back, and that in what could be our last European game for the season, there's no place for our big £4 million centre half.
No, not based on current form. I think the fact he cost £4 million is irrelevant in this conversation.
But I mean, does that make it more of a considering the fact that we've got Goldson and Katic, who are probably 2 of our stronger players throughout the 11, we've got Edmundson sitting behind them. Does it make it even more, as the weeks go by, more and more strange and confusing that we spent £4 million on another centre half?
How many goals have we conceded this season so far?
I could count them on one hand.
Exactly. So the defence is playing well just now. It would be criminal to look at that defence just now. With the possible exception of left back, you couldn't certainly look at the right back or the centre halves and say, right, one of you 2 needs, or one of you 3 needs dropped. The fact that we have 2 good centre halves sitting on the sidelines awaiting their chance is possibly why Katic is playing so well. You probably won't remember this, Ross. We used to have a player play for us, a guy called Mark Hateley. Ask your dad about him. But we broke the British record to buy a guy called Duncan Ferguson. Biggest signing in Britain at the time, literally made the news at 10. And Ferguson, I'm being slightly flippant, the kind of player Ferguson was. But Ferguson was very much viewed as a replacement for Mark Hateley. And the season we signed Ferguson, Hateley had his best season for Rangers. He rose to that challenge. And it could be that Katic is rising to the challenge. Could be that Katic has realised, okay, if I want in this team, if I want to be a part of this, then I need to be at the top of my game every week. And if that cost us £4 million to bring in a guy who'll get a game, centre halves pick up bookings, centre halves get sent off, and centre halves pick up injuries. And if we go through on Thursday, we'll have a lot of games to play. So they'll all get a chance. I don't have any doubt about that. But I have absolutely no problem with us having spent that money on a centre half, particularly, hoping he's a good centre half. I think that was a very wise move. And, it's a long season. I think they'll all have a part to play.
You could tell the value of them, both of them today, because for most of the game, they played the game in St Mirren's half, across the halfway line, and not in defence at all.
Katic has been tell you what I've liked about Katic this season. He's a threat in the opposition box as well.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, he's extremely dangerous in the air at set pieces.
Yeah, I think he's probably our most dangerous player at corners and that kind of set piece. I think Katic is the one that occupies the mind of the opposition.
His goal in Midtjylland was absolutely fantastic with the outside of the boot.
His goal in Denmark was supreme. I loved it. If we stay with the back line though, and we move away from the centre halves, obviously the right back slot is nailed down. Borna Barisic today arguably had his best game for Rangers and scored an absolutely stunning goal. And if there's anyone listening to the show and hasn't seen the goal, it's just wonderful. It's a perfect postage stamp free kick, really, really nice at a time that we needed it. First things first, Graham, what can that do for his confidence? There's a lot of people saying online this evening that that Barisic needed that and now he can kick on and be the player we all know he can be. Is that a wee bit simplistic? Is that oversimplifying things a bit?
Is it oversimplifying things about his confidence? Well, I don't know. He seemed to enjoy scoring. Straight to the fans, although he's booked for it at the end. But it seemed to mean a lot to him. Or well, at least it looked like it meant a lot to him. So yeah, of course it would boost his confidence scoring a goal like that. It was a peach. And it wasn't as if he smashed it into the goal. He placed it delicately, passed it into the net up in that corner. A fantastic goal.
He knew exactly what he wanted to do with it. But I guess the question is, what does Barisic need to do now to nail down that left-back slot above two guys who aren't even natural left-backs?
Just keep playing the way he's playing.
And today's goal, help him with that, help him with the confidence and help him to get there.
Well, the way he started the season, I didn't think he'd done anything wrong to be dropped in the first place for John Flanagan. Other people have a different opinion at that, but I didn't see they had done anything. But he doesn't offer anything going forward. Well, at Kilmarnock, he was teamed up against both Chris Burke and the lad O'Donnell. And Scott Arfield wasn't making the runs for him inside him because Scott was playing tight. So he didn't really have the opportunity to make many the overlap, and then booked in the first half, so removed for his own safety, I think. But I didn't see him making any mistakes. He scored a cracking goal against St Joseph's as well, which apparently has been attributed to Conor Olsen. So as I say, I didn't see anything in what he had done that merited them being dropped in the first place. Although the Rangers fans are still yet to be convinced by this guy. I accept that.
I'm yet to be convinced. I'll be absolutely honest. I'm yet to be convinced by him. I think he had flashes of very good play today, but I agree. I don't necessarily see anything that he did particularly wrong. I think he picked up a stupid, naive booking that didn't help his cause, and that led to him being dropped. And then Flanagan comes in, and Flanagan plays well, and probably in most games plays better than Barisic has done. And Barisic hasn't shown anything over the past season that leads me to believe he can handle the expectation of playing for Rangers and handle games where he's expected to be a creative force, right? We're playing today, we play with Ryan Jack and Glenn Kamara and Joe Aribo. As has been pointed out in the comments here, Joe Aribo was playing also quite deep. And obviously the idea for that is to allow Barisic and allow Tavernier to push on and really develop down the wings. It happened on the right wing, but it never happened on the left because Barisic and Jordan Jones never really worked well together.
No, that's true. I think that's what the main problem is. We're comparing them and contrasting them against James Tavernier, who for the last 3-4 seasons has been excellent for Rangers, and at times his delivery has been fantastic. And now in the first 10 minutes of the game today, you're looking at James Tavernier and you're saying, Tav's up for this. But a lot of the balls that he put in were overhit. And that's the truth. They were overhit and there was nobody there. Jordan Jones should have been in there in that area, but wasn't. We've seen the same thing on Thursday night against Legia. And Ojo got on it in the first 8 minutes. Ojo got on it, but he put his header wide, if you remember that. It was the same ball he played. And again, John Flanagan wasn't up there to pick up that ball. So John Flanagan on Thursday night was fantastic. He was excellent. He's made some fantastic tackles and some excellent interceptions. But that doesn't mean that the Borna Barisic isn't a good player, just because John Flanagan had a good game.
No, that's true, and I'm not going to argue with that. But the question, I guess, in a more pragmatic sense is, do you trust Borna Barisic to play on Thursday and play on Sunday in our two biggest games of the season?
Maybe not Thursday, but Sunday, yeah.
That's interesting. See, I wouldn't play him on Sunday.
He
He gives me the fear at times. I just don't know if I could play him on Sunday.
Well, we played him at Celtic Park last year, and he was absolutely fine.
I'm with Ross. He's a player I'm yet to be convinced by. It's there. It's so frustrating.
There's
a player in there, but he's hiding it at times.
And as Mark points out here on the stream, he needs a run of games to build a bit of confidence. He needs to put a few good performances together. But unfortunately, when you're playing for Rangers, you don't get the 3 or 4 easy performances where you can really feel your way into the game, and you're certainly not going to get it this week.
Yeah.
And as Ace23 Jer points out as well, Flanagan defensively has looked stronger and looked more capable than Barisic. And that's what we're going to need this week. On Thursday, we certainly need to keep a clean sheet. We really, really need to keep it tight defensively. And Barisic can be exploited. We saw it this afternoon. We saw that, they were getting some joy towards the end of the game down their right flank. And maybe Barisic has picked up a wee knock, we don't know. But they certainly had at least 1 or 2 opportunities where they could have equalised. And it looked like that came from Barisic's end. So if he's struggling to look tight defensively against St Mirren, I struggle to see him going in against Celtic or against Legia.
I don't see him playing against Legia. Legia are too clever on that right-hand side. But I don't see how he wouldn't fit into that team playing against Celtic. The only person in the Celtic team that really makes that any difference is James Forrest, really.
Well, it's certainly a different proposition to Celtic sides that we went up against maybe 18 months ago. Sticking on that theme then, John, obviously next Sunday it's the first Old Firm of the season, them coming to Ibrox, and with us going in level on points, this is a chance to really, really put down a marker. Are you more confident this season than you have been perhaps over the last couple of seasons?
No, I am the world's biggest pessimist when it comes to games against the Tims. I'm never confident going into them. Being sensible for a second, I think you have to look at this current Celtic team and say it doesn't look as good a team as perhaps they had the last 2 seasons. And at the same time, they've had 1 bad result, and it was a very bad result. That result for them against Cluj, that was to lose 4 at home. That was a very, very poor result. Suggests, a lack of leadership, suggests a lack of game management, a host of things wrong. Other than that, they're doing pretty well. They're scoring goals in Scotland. I never go in confident. I always go in fearing the worst. It's just my nature. Celtic are actually in okay form. I think I've read a few things. I've read a few things in Gersnet. I've read a few things online elsewhere, where people have been making comments about that the Celtic are there for the taking, etc. I'm not convinced Celtic are there for the taking. I think we will need to be our absolute best to beat them on Sunday. I still think they are dangerous. Whatever we think of Lee Griffiths, and I don't think a lot of them, he can score goals in the Scottish League. He can hurt teams. He is very good from set pieces. The guy, is it Edouard? Is that his name? Edouard?
The BBC.
That's the one. Again, this is a guy who can score goals at the level that Celtic are playing at. He can score goals at that level. They've got 2 or 3 guys in midfield, the guy McGregor, the guy Forrest that you've said who seem to be in reasonable form. If we underestimate them, I think that would be a mistake. What I will say is I don't think the Rangers management team and Rangers players are underestimated. I think it's the fans that are getting, or some of the fans who are getting a little bit carried away. We beat them, we beat them, and we beat them well at home in the last game of the season. The last Rangers Celtic game of the season. We dominated them from the start of that game to the end. We played well against them. We beat them at home in the game earlier in the season as well. But there's not much between the teams. I think it's fair to say that there's not much between the teams. A mistake, a piece of brilliance could win it. If we go in with the right attitude, then we'll see. I am a little concerned that what will happen after the Thursday night. How Thursday night goes. We'll have that's going to be a tough game on Thursday night for us. Legia are coming into that game thinking they can win it. They're coming to Ibrox thinking they can win it. We saw ourselves last Thursday. They're no mugs. They're a decent team. They're certainly a team. They're certainly as good as us. So we need to be at our best to beat them. It'll be interesting to see. Celtic are in a better position. All right, they have to go away from home. They've got a bit of travelling. But no, I never go in confident. I always go in thinking, I just can't wait for this to be over. I never enjoy them.
Joe, I tell you what, thank God you're not doing our team talk, because but today, I've got a day off work tomorrow, lovely sunny day, been out at the pub, 2 minutes with you and I'm miserable.
Yeah, no, you would be.
Man.
Just be grateful you can't see me, Ross.
Jesus Christ. Thanks to the listeners that have managed to stick in with that, because I think we'll move on. Because
I was just going to talk about it myself there, Ross. Celtic are there for the taking. But that doesn't instill me any more confidence than I normally would have. Because like the rest of the teams in Scotland, when they play us, they always raise their game, regardless how they're playing. And you can never, really, on form, one team should win or one team should lose or whatever. That goes out the window when it's an Old Firm match. So, treat it just the same as any other Old Firm match. Go in there with your confidence that you're good enough to beat them. And if you get the result, then great. I'd like to see us hammer them, but if we beat them 1-0, that's just as good as us 5-0 to me.
How do you see it going, Ross?
How do I see it going?
Aye.
No one ever asks me. I just ask the questions. I think we'll do it. I really do. And I'm usually quite pessimistic, but I really do think that we've improved over the summer. We've really improved. You see Joe Aribo today, right? He's a class player. There's a different class to that boy. And I think Stephen Davis has matured and kind of got back to where he was as a Rangers player. He's looking fitter than he ever did. And he's sharp and he's intelligent. I think we've got better players than we did.
Yeah, Jack's in great form as well.
Jack's in fantastic form. Jack today was phenomenal. And I just think there's a steal about us. And there's a really, really good point that's been made here again on the YouTube, is that often these things can be decided based on the number of debuts that are being made in the Old Firm. And we have got a few, right? So if Shea Ojo plays or if Jordan Jones plays, Joe Aribo will be making a debut. But I think we've also got a lot of experience. Shagger, very experienced. Davis, very experienced. Ryan Jack's played in a few of these things now. Tav as well, very experienced in Old Firms now. And I just think if we get the noise levels up in Ibrox, obviously with the right songs, we can create an atmosphere that's going to make them feel under pressure, put them under pressure very early on. I would just love to see Morelos get a goal. I really, really would. I would love to see him, because that's the one stick that people can still beat him with, because his disciplinary record's tidying up. His goal scoring return is excellent. The one stick that they still beat him with is that he's not scored against Celtic. I would love to see him stick the winner away on Sunday. I think we'll do it. I really
There's a good chance of that happening if Frankenstein's in goal.
Aye, exactly. I mean, did you see, by the way, that they announced that signing like midway through the first half of them playing out in Stockholm? And yet we're supposed to believe that they have all this great PR and they're such a slick machine. Anyway, we're getting away from the point. I think what we need to do next, lads, is talk a wee bit about Thursday. It was obviously a tough place to go, Legia Warsaw. It's a step up in class and step up in ability compared to the teams we've faced so far. Midtjylland were a good side, but we proved ourselves to be better. But I think Legia Warsaw are kind of a cut above them. John, I'm sure you managed to catch the game on Thursday. What did you make of the performance? And is 0-0 a good result for us?
I was disappointed with the result. I think you need to score away from home. I think in two-legged European matches, you need to go away from home. This may sound daft. I actually think losing 2-1 in some ways is a better result than drawing nothing each. I know that sounds daft, but I still think you need an away goal. So I think we're going to have a tougher game on Thursday than we've played any game this season so far. This will be our hardest game. They'll fancy it. They'll fancy they can take it on the break. I mean, I think we had good chances on Thursday night. I actually thought we played quite well in patches, but in the second half, I thought they were the better team. What worried me a little bit was I thought we were starting to get a little tired. I thought we were starting to get pulled out of position a bit. They were getting a bit of space, and with better finishing, they should have they should have scored. I think there's 2 occasions I thought, you really should have scored that. There was one with the header, the guy put the header past that he should have buried. There was one where McGregor had a very good save. And I think it was Katic had one. I think it was Katic, one superb block. It was Katic, wasn't it?
No, it was John Flanagan.
Was it? No, what, Flanagan, was it? Came in?
Yeah.
Covering, was it? I never give Flanagan credit for anything. I'm going to pretend that I still think it's Katic and give him the credit for that, just because I don't like John Flanagan. But I thought we played well in patches. Really good in the first half. Not so good in the second half. But that being said, we should have scored. I thought that chance that fell to Alfredo, he should have buried. Frankly, that was one he should have buried. So is it doable? Yes, it is. A rocking Ibrox, the way we play football, if we can keep it tight at the back, if we can get a goal, we don't even need to score an early goal, but if we can get a goal in the first half, I would be confident then with them having to attack us, the kind of players we've got, that we would be able to start then making use of the space. As it is, I think they will try and hit us in the break. I think they'll expect us to bring the game to them. I think that is how we'll play. And they'll try and hit us in the break. And we need to be wise to that. And are Warsaw a better team than the Russians we played last season? I think they are. I think they are a better team. I thought they were a better team than I thought they were going to be on Thursday night. I thought they were, certainly. I think if we'd come away from it with a defeat, I don't think we could have complained too much. It would have been disappointing, but I don't think we complained too much. Likewise, if we'd take the win, we'd have been delighted.
They're strong. They're a strong European side with good European pedigree. Maybe not so much in the last few years, but they are a good side. The most successful team in Poland. And you compare Polish football to Scottish football, there's probably not too much in it. Graham, how about yourself? Would you, the simple question that's obviously very, very hard to answer in retrospect, but would you have taken 0-0 if it was offered to you at the start of the game?
Yeah, I would have. Just wanted to say that I think they got a late winner today in a 3-2. With the team, I can't remember the name of the team that they were playing now. It escapes me. But yeah, they got a late winner, and that team had been in the lead twice, and they came back. Legia and won 3-2 at the end. So they've definitely got goals on their team. Would I have taken the 0-0? Yeah, absolutely. I would have taken 0-0. But that doesn't make it any easier. It's going to be a very difficult tie to navigate. We need to have good game management, and we need to know the right time to score and the right time to hold. And if we can do that, then I think we'll go through.
Yeah, right. They beat Lodz 3-2 away from home.
Yeah.
Today.
Look, someone's made a really good point here. Mark's made a good point on the YouTube that they have the best defensive record that we'll have come up against in the Europa League this season or last season. And I have a feeling that I'm right in saying they've not conceded in any of the Europa League qualifiers this season. But we have goals in us. We put 6 past Hibs. We put 7 on aggregate, I think, past Midtjylland. We put 10 on aggregate past St Joseph's. And all right, the quality goes up, but there are goals in this side, and Legia have to come out and play because they have to score on Thursday. And so it's a totally different proposition to the St Mirren game. As Mark points out, both managers have said that the game has kind of swung now, slightly tipped in Rangers' favour. It's hard because the most pressure in this game is on the Rangers defence, right? If Legia score, I think Legia win. So we need to keep a clean sheet. Obviously, if Legia score, we need to score twice. So
and the game on Thursday there, all the literature that I was reading before it and match analysis stuff that I was reading before the game expected them to use a high block, which they didn't do. They used the mid block. So that reduced the space in the middle of the park. Now, is that the way they play at home, or is that the way they play away? If they use their high block, then there's plenty of space in the middle of the park for us to exploit.
John, do you need someone to explain what a high block and a mid block is, or are you feeling all right?
No, I know the haircuts.
That's shite patter. Right. No, you're right, Graham, in that it's tough. And what I think is going to work in our favour is that we have got a very adept tactical coaching side in Mick Beale, Jordan Milsom, particularly Michael Beale, of course. and I think they'll be well prepared and well set up.
And also Steven Gerrard, so he's got the experience himself, over 100 odd games in Europe. So that's where I think the game will be won and lost.
Of course. And so, but to me, the game is going to be won and lost in our penalty box and how tight we can keep it. As has been pointed out online here, Legia Warsaw are very, very good in the air. They're very good at set pieces and they're particularly deadly from corners. So what's going to matter most to us is keeping it tight in our own penalty box. And, it sounds silly, it sounds old-fashioned, but a no-nonsense approach. And that, to me, is why Nikola Katic has to play in this game. I'm sorry to kind of bring it back to something we were talking about 15 minutes ago. That's why Katic has to play in this game. And I worry that Connor Goldson doesn't have quite as cool a head as Katic does.
We were also informed that Midtjylland had that capability as well. Exactly. I mean, there's a good shout to say that Legia are a slightly better team than Midtjylland, but I thought Midtjylland were pretty handy, to be honest with you. And their set plays just didn't work on the night. But apparently that's where they're strongest. And we did okay against it in both games.
I thought we overran them from the start of the first game. We just overran them. We took our chances. That tie was over by midway through the second half of the. Even when it got back to 3-2, you weren't worried. You still thought we'll score more.
Yeah, I was worried. I spent all that money on flights and a hotel in Denmark. I was worried when that got to 3-2.
Yeah, I knew you couldn't go the whole podcast without dropping in that you were at that game. I knew it was impossible.
No, sorry. The thing is, right, John, we can talk about, I think in Denmark they were technically good players, but they were tactically poor. And that's probably been borne out by the fact that their manager's now walked away because he knows how badly he got that wrong. So if we put that to one side, how do you actually feel about this coming Thursday? What's your gut saying? Do you think we can do it?
Yeah, I absolutely think we can do it. I think, like you said, there's goals in this team. We can score. We play nice football. Having watched us in the Europa League last season, we shouldn't fear anyone. I do think that the players, I think the Europa League level is our level just now. I think that is the kind of level we're at, and I think we can, go toe to toe with just about any side in the Europa League and at Ibrox, and expect to have a result. So no, I don't go into it fearing the worst. It's not like the Celtic game where I don't work with any Legia Warsaw fans. I don't have to fear going to see them on the Monday morning. So it's slightly different. I think we could have had a slightly better result in Warsaw, but I think we can win at Ibrox. I'll be disappointed if we go out. We're not playing. They're not Barcelona. They're not Liverpool. They're a decent European team. They're on a par with us, but at Ibrox, I still think that we are good enough to win this tie. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
One more goals than them.
Any win. It's on anyone. That's it. Anyone at all, and we're through.
1-0, 5-4. It doesn't matter. We just need to do it. But I think we can. And I think you said it yourself. There are goals in our team, and if we can keep it tight at the back, then I think we can score.
So then the question becomes, Graham. Obviously, we've got a huge week coming up with the fact we have to play the most important game of our season so far on Thursday, and then 3 days later on Sunday we have another massive game domestically. How do you balance the importance of getting the team right on Thursday with ensuring that we're sufficiently prepared and sufficiently rested for Sunday?
You don't balance it. You play your best team in both games. It's only 2 games.
But does that potentially compromise certain players and then potentially compromise the effectiveness of the team for Sunday?
It shouldn't. It's only 2 games.
But
it's the start of the season.
You mentioned, I'm sure it was yourself mentioned, that we did start to look tired in Poland, which isn't something we've said often about a Steven Gerrard team. So if we were looking tired,
John.
John. Then, if we're looking tired in Poland, which I agree with, is there a danger that we need to be looking at rotation or need to be playing this smart, and it's not just as simple as play your best team because it might compromise the effectiveness on Sunday?
Well, if you look at it was a very professional performance by Rangers on Thursday. Especially in the first half. We more or less controlled the first half. And they were reduced to what in total over the full game, maybe 3-4 shots, and a European tie for a qualifier. That's no mean feat. So it's not a surprise to me that around the 60, 65 minute mark, certain players, Joe Aribo in particular, was starting to get tired. The amount of work that they were putting in was basically, that was the result of it. Of course they were going to get tired. Scott Arfield was knackered. Scott Arfield wasn't so hot today either. His first touch was off, and he did look tired. But he's got a few days to rest up for Thursday, and then a few days again to rest up for Sunday. These are players that will probably play both games, Thursday and Sunday. And then you can pick around either Jermaine Defoe for Thursday or Jermaine Defoe for Sunday. And who do you play? Do you play Jermaine Defoe on the Thursday or play him on the Sunday or play him in both games? I don't think Jermaine Defoe at his age has got those two games in him. Alfredo Morelos most definitely would have. No, I don't see any problems with asking professional football athletes to play 2 games in a week, especially when they're two massive games like these.
Yeah, I agree with Graham there, Ross. Particularly in August. Fair enough if it was March, but I think in August, that we're more than capable of playing these 2 games. Yeah, some players will be tired. They might get knocks, etc. But you still play your best team on Thursday, and then see where that leaves you for Sunday. Our squad's big enough.
See, that's the key point. You play your best team on Thursday and see what that leaves you on Sunday. And I'm not saying you're wrong, and I absolutely agree with that point. But you have to be pragmatic and realise that does leave a potential that if 3 of our best players get kicked off the park on Thursday, we are compromised for Sunday. And I know you can't legislate for that, but that's the reality of the position, right?
Well, yes, it is. But so I don't think you can prioritise. I think at this stage, winning on Thursday is important to the club. Financially, it's important to the club in terms of the prestige of getting through to that stage again. And it's important to the supporters because that's where we want to see our club playing. So, I would be very surprised. I would be disappointed if we picked a team on Thursday with one eye towards Sunday. I would be very surprised at that. In fact, for me, if you said which of the 2 games is the must win, I would say the Warsaw game's the must win. We don't win that match, we're out of Europe. We don't win the Celtic match, we've still got another 6 months to get past them, and I think we can.
I agree. Absolutely.
Look, it's a fair point, and like I say, I don't disagree with you to a certain degree. I'm playing devil's advocate, but I think it is in an ideal world, I play your strongest side, and they'll be fine, and it's an international break, and you'll just push on through. But the players did look tired on Thursday, and they've now played another 90 minutes where they had the ball for 74% possession today, something like that. And so they've been moving the ball, they've been doing the running. To then ask them to play what is going to be the hardest game of the season on Thursday, and then the next hardest game of the season 3 days later, it is tough. It's tough physically, and it's tough mentally and emotionally. But you're right. You're spot on. You play your best team, and the Thursday's game is a must-win. But if we don't win it, you can make an argument that gives us more time to focus and prioritise on the league. All of those arguments, I don't care about that. I want to win every game. But there we go. Listen, I think we need to, at this point, kind of address the big UEFA-shaped elephant in the room. On Friday evening, we obviously discovered that, first of all, the news broke that there was going to be some kind of sanction, some kind of penalty for illicit chanting or singing against St Joseph's. It then followed very, very quickly that meant 3,000 seats were going to be closed in a partial stadium closure for the home leg against Warsaw. Obviously, what's now transpired is they've decided on the section that's going to be closed. It seems that Union Bears have been kind of pinpointed as the root cause of the problem, whether that's right or wrong, and we all have our own opinions on that. Graham, I know you don't want to say too much about it, but we'll kind of jump with you first and then let John take over. What are your kind of immediate reactions to what's happened off the field and in a disciplinary sense from Friday night?
Well, we really, as a fan base, have to be pragmatic about it. We were warned previously about unacceptable language in songs by UEFA, and we were told that we would have sections of the ground closed off. And essentially, although we were not actually absolutely 100% sure as fans what was in this latest report, UEFA have decided, this is their tournament, they have decided that we have to have a section of our stand closed. Being pragmatic, we have to accept that and move on. How the club deals with that is a different matter, which is something that I don't really want to discuss because I don't have any solutions either, really. But we have to accept the UEFA ruling as it is and move on from it.
It's a mature approach, obviously, Graham. John, we'll come to the kind of the rights and wrongs of this and who should, who can we assign any blame to? I'll say right at the outset of this, at no point on this show, whether it's myself or Colin on the show, anyone on the Gersnet podcast, at no point are we going to start criticising our own fan base and turning on our own. Let's get one thing out of the way first, John. This seems like an unfair and an uneven application of the rules. Say you accept what we've done is wrong. You accept that the crime that we've committed was committed. It strikes me that the application of the rules, when you look at what's being done by the fans of other clubs outside Scotland, inside Scotland, it doesn't seem like a fair and even application of UEFA's rules and UEFA's sanctions.
Are you asking me if I agree with that statement or what? I mean, I don't follow UEFA closely enough to know exactly what they are saying and doing with other clubs. I think, as we said beforehand, we are not the first club to have had part of our stadium closed by UEFA. Atletico Madrid had a partial stadium closure last season in the Europa League. And they actually had 3,000 seats where they were told that they had to close 3,000 seats. So we're not the first club to get this. I do think that a number of our support are looking at this in the prism of Scotland and saying, well, how come we've had this when other clubs, not a million miles away from us, who share the league with us, haven't had fines or have had this or have had that, censures and things. And there may be some truth in that. But I think, as Graham says, you know what? We can only deal with ourselves. There's absolutely no point in us pointing the finger elsewhere and saying, what about them? Any Rangers supporter who goes to games who didn't know that there are certain songs that have been around for a long, long time, but there are certain songs that are viewed by various organisations, including UEFA and the Scottish media, and FARE or FARE or whatever, however you say their name, and organisations that are viewed as being sectarian. That are, people say they're racist. We know this. We've been told this before. And what frustrates me is that these songs were largely eradicated. You didn't hear them at Ibrox. You didn't hear them at away grounds. They didn't disappear altogether, but you didn't hear them sung. But they've come back, and they've come back in the last 18 months or so. And we've all heard them come back, and there's no point in pretending that. What I can't do is turn around just now to you and say that this didn't happen. Because I have heard Rangers supporters sing songs that we know they shouldn't be singing. We know that are liable to get them into bother, get the club into bother, get individuals into bother. Some of these individuals, these are people, you could be arrested for singing some of these songs now. I know some Rangers supporters get frustrated. And I think part of it is they view what happens at other clubs and say, hang on, they seem to be able to get away with doing certain things. But I think you also need to just stop and say, well, hang on a second, all I can do is be responsible for myself. And frankly, anybody who is willing to get themselves a criminal record for singing a song, good luck to them, but you're off your head. I think it was Alistair McCulloch, and apologies if I shouldn't mention his name, tweeted on Friday night that, if you think you're involved in some kind of culture war just now, that's fine. You shouldn't be doing it at Ibrox. Okay? If you have issues over freedom of speech, if your issues are, if you feel that there's draconian measures just now, and that your freedom of speech, your freedom of expression is in some way being stifled, well, that's fine. Go join a political party. Take part in a march on Saturday. Go down to London and take part in a march down there. Send letters to your MP. Lobby the media. Don't come to Ibrox and sing the Billy Boys, because you know what? All that does is get the club into trouble. Okay, it will not further whatever cause that you have 1 inch. It simply won't. So if you're frustrated about, not being able to sing that song or other songs that carry similar baggage, then that's absolutely fine. That is it's a democracy. You're entirely entitled to feel that way. But coming to Ibrox and singing it doesn't take that any further. It just gets the club into trouble. And the club have said in the past, we don't want you to sing that. And I don't think they could have been any more. They couldn't have said it any clearer on Friday that you are harming the club. I suspect there are a number of people at the club are very, very disappointed from a financial perspective. But I also, losing the T's and C's, but I also think that they're embarrassed. I don't think, and I have this conversation with people from time to time, I don't think the Rangers support is racist. Genuinely don't. And I think that's something that's thrown at the Rangers support from time to time. I think this is not true. The Rangers support, the only thing the Rangers support care about in their players is that they give everything when they play for Rangers. And I will debate that with anybody. They don't care what colour that person is. They don't care what religion that person is. They don't care what country that person comes from. If they give everything for Rangers when they're on the park, the support are behind them, and they will support. And that for me is what being a Rangers supporter is about. That for me is what I think. The overwhelming majority of Rangers supporters think about Rangers and their players. And we can have a big discussion about the history of some of the songs that used to get sung and are being sung again. It doesn't get us any further forward. The meaning of words change through time. The meaning of words change. Words that meant something 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, they mean different things today. And we just have to accept that. And I don't know why it's so difficult for people to accept that. And as I said earlier, if people would feel they're involved in some kind of culture war just now, if people would feel they're involved in some kind of, making some kind of point about what they can and cannot say, then frankly, going to the football is not the place to do that. If you feel that strongly about that, then you should be taking other measures in your life to get that across. There are plenty of other vehicles for you to do that. But turning up at a Rangers game and singing songs that are going to get the club into trouble, don't be surprised when the club get into trouble. And don't be surprised then if the club take measures to try and stop that happening. I think everybody who goes to Ibrox on a regular basis appreciates what comes out of the front of the Broomer. There are times in some games where, frankly, if they weren't making a noise, you'd hear the players. That's just modern football. That's just how it is. All-seated stadiums and season tickets have led to that. And I think everybody is grateful for the noise they make. So do I think it's fair that they seem to be getting the blame? I'll choose my words carefully here. I think 99% of the songs sung at Ibrox begin there. So I can understand why that seems to be the section that's getting closed. And for all I know, UEFA have said that is the section that's getting closed. I don't know one way or the other, or whether that's the club that has made that decision. But I can understand why. I think there will be repercussions. I think, I imagine, I read the Union Bear statement before we went on tonight, and they're clearly not happy about it. I suspect there will be, there's countless pages on the thread on this in Gersnet just now, with people making various different points. But as I said, UEFA make the rules. There is absolutely no point in complaining about that. They make the rules. It's their ball, and if they say we're taking our ball home, we've no game. And it does frustrate me. And a bit of my wishes we've maybe spoken out about this a bit earlier, Ross. We've all heard these songs over the last 12 to 18 months. We've all heard them come back. And I wonder whether some of us should have spoken out a bit earlier and said, look, you know what, that needs to stop. Maybe that has been going on in the background. Maybe there are people at the club have spoken to, and I know there is conversations between the various singing sections and Union Bears and the club. They clearly have to be talking to each other to put together some of the displays and things they're doing. I have some sympathy. There will be people in that section who are not going to get to see a big game, who perhaps have done absolutely nothing wrong. I think that happens in football, where we all end up getting tarred with the same brush, and that is very unfair at times. But surely now, hopefully now, that will be the end of it. Hopefully now folk will just accept, what, whether you like it or not isn't the point. The point is you can't do it. So please stop, because this is what happens if you do. What's your take on it, Ross? I mean, you're viewing it from afar.
Yeah, I mean, I think first things first, that speech was certainly much more uplifting than your preview for the Old Firm game next week. But I think I totally agree with you, and it does boil down to it's UEFA's law, and you can argue the merits of the law to try and change the law, but until you change that law, it's still the law, right? That's still the rule. So you can't break the law. You can't do the action that would break that rule until you've changed it, right? It's not dissimilar to, like, for example, laws around smoking marijuana, legalizing marijuana. You can make arguments as to whether it should be legal or it shouldn't be illegal, but for the time being, you can't do it. And if you do it, don't be surprised that you get into trouble. And just, by arguing that, well, so-and-so down the road also does it and they're not getting into trouble, or, well, I did it, but it shouldn't be illegal and it shouldn't be a problem. That's kind of irrelevant. It's all bluster around the sides of the things. Singing songs like that, or the add-ons, are getting us into trouble. So let's stop doing it. Let's support our team in other ways, because I don't care which players bless themselves. I don't care what colour a player is or what religion he is. We've had Catholic captains, Catholic managers, Catholic goal scorers, and every single one of us has taken them to our hearts. And so it's beyond belief, because actually I don't think we don't mean the kind of thing behind the word. We don't mean that sentiment, I think, a lot of the time, but that doesn't matter. We're still committing the act. We're still doing it. And it really is that simple. And yes, we're an easy target, because the guys at FARE are clearly biased, right? You look at the number of games they're attending, our games versus other people's games. There's a clear bias there. The actual guy who passed on the report is clearly biased. It doesn't matter, right? Because we're still doing it. And we are a very easy target, because we keep painting a giant target on our chests and we keep handing them the ammunition. And when that stops, then I find it frustrating. The one question that I do have, actually, I have loads of questions about the whole thing, but I can see that we're really running out of time. The one thing that I do want to ask, John, is you say that the songs kind of went away. Why is it, in your opinion, that the songs have come back?
Because they didn't go away fully. They went away. People were stopped singing them at the matches. But, if you went to, I live in Glasgow. You guys have all spent time here. If you went to certain pubs, you went to certain functions, you'd hear those songs. They never vanished completely. And I do think there's a part of the psyche in Scotland, certainly, and certainly in Glasgow, that people don't like being told they can't do certain things. You know, they don't like being told, no, that's not, you can't do it. You can't sing that song. You can't say that. Particularly when it's something that has gone on, you know, for years, for decades. You know, I mean, let's talk about the Billy Boys. You know, and I don't know if it was that specific song that was the case here, but you know, that was a song that we were told to stop singing. Okay, you know, so people didn't forget the Billy Boys. You know, frankly, the Billy Boys is a great football song. You know, it's the right tempo. You know, it's the right length. You know, it's a song that, if it had different words, would still be a great football song. You know, the Kilmarnock fans sing it with different words. You know, and it's a good football song. You know, but what I mean by that is it's an easy song to sing. You know, it's the right, as I said, the tempo's right. It's the right speed. It's easy, and we're missing it. So they never went away, Ross. Those songs never went away. We just stopped singing them at Ibrox. But you could still hear them. You know, I mean, I think if we're all being honest with each other, you could still hear them. You could hear them in supporters' buses sometimes. You know, you could, as I said, you hear them in certain pubs. They never went away. I think there's still an element in the support who don't like the fact they're being told they can't sing these songs. You know, who will point to other clubs and say, well, how come we can't use that word and they can't? And you say, well, you know what? That's their problem. Our problem is don't use it. You know, and we can get into the ins and outs of, well, you know, it's 2019. Why the hell are we singing about this now? You know, I mean, we can get into all that if anybody wants. But culturally, it's still there in some of our support, that they still want to sing about it. And I think they were annoyed they weren't allowed to. And it came back when we were going through the divisions, and it was a wee bit of a hoo-ha, but, you know, that kind of nobody made a big enough thing. And I do think the Scottish League and the SFA, you know, I think they tried and then they stopped, and the Scottish Parliament and get involved, and it didn't quite work out the way they thought it was going to work out. And I do think that people have thought, you know what, we can sing this again because we're not going to go to jail, and nobody's brought in any legislation that's properly going to stop this. So it's came back. And there's a whole variety of reasons for it. But I find it really frustrating. And the truth is, I find it embarrassing. You know, I do. When you hear the songs, you think, Jesus, really? Now, I'm an old man now. You know, perhaps when I was 19, I felt differently. But I'm 49 now, and I don't. I look at it now and I cringe. You know, I do. I think, really, is there a need for that? Why are we singing about that against, you know, a team from Gibraltar that we're horsing? What brings that to your mind? I don't know. You can only ask the guys that are singing it.
Well, it's just put a real dampener on what's been a fantastic opening to the season. And listen, we can go on and have a superb week that will really be season defining for us. Could bring in a hell of a lot of money. Could see us go clear at the top of the league. Could have a real psychological impact on the title race. I sincerely hope that the actions that have caused us to now lose 3,000 seats and perhaps lose our 3,000 most vocal supporters isn't going to have a knock-on effect on Thursday, which could have a knock-on effect for the rest of the season. Listen, I reckon we could talk about this all night, and since it's a bank holiday in England and I'm off to work tomorrow, I'm tempted to do so, but I reckon that's probably a good time to call it quits there. Guys, I just want to say a massive thank you to both my guests this evening, to John and Graham, for their fascinating insight as always. Also, a big thanks to anyone who's joined in with the show and left us a comment over on the YouTube. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to get through more of those, but I haven't been able to cut in front of John's talking. If you have enjoyed the show, make sure you head over to the website, www.gersnet.co.uk. You get loads more great content over there, including match previews, special articles, as well as a friendly discussion forum where you can find myself, John, Graham, all the other podcast contributors. I'm sure you're already members, but if you're not, certainly do check it out and let us know what you think. We'll be back the same time next week after what is going to be a massive, massive week for Rangers, welcoming obviously Legia, Warsaw and Celtic to Ibrox. Make sure you join Colin for that one. All that's left for me to say is thank you very, very much for joining us as always, and have a great week.